If you've ever spent money on ads and thought to yourself, this should be working better than it is, this video is going to make you uncomfortable. Because turning 5k in ad spend into 50k worth of client revenue isn't about some secret hack. It's about making 5 advertising decisions that almost every coach gets wrong. And today I'm going to break down for you how to make those decisions correctly, including the platform, the ad strategy, the lead flow, what type of creative you should be using, and how to properly target, so that you know exactly how to get it right and to be profitable every single time. So let's begin by looking at what type of platform you should be using when it comes to advertising your high ticket coaching business. So in terms of platforms, right, these are obviously the main platforms that I'd recommend you look at and consider when you're thinking about advertising yourself. So let's go through all of these and just discuss what's best. Now, Google is obviously a really great platform to advertise on. It's got amazing targeting, it's got a ridiculous amount of traffic, and a lot of the time with Google, the types of characters that you will attract are portions of the market that are more intent and more looking to take action straight away. Now, the only recent bad thing about Google, and that's creating a bit of uncertainty about advertising on Google, is ChatGPT. Now, what we're seeing is consumer trends are changing, right? And even for myself personally, right, I barely actually search on Google anymore. I just use ChatGPT as my search engine, essentially. And so what that means, if you're advertising on Google, or if you decide to advertise on Google, there's always going to be that little bit of uncertainty there. And what that's also going to mean for you is you might start to see your ad costs rise. And realistically, if you're going to dump budget into something that you want to bring you customers, you don't want to put it into a platform that's creating uncertainty. So I personally wouldn't recommend going down the Google route when it comes to the platform. Now, second off, let's start to look at LinkedIn and discuss that as a place to spend this 5k in ad spend. So LinkedIn, I'm not going to recommend it, as simple as that. First of all, high costs, right? LinkedIn is probably one of the most expensive platforms to advertise on, and a lot of the time that increase in expense and cost doesn't correlate with the quality of the leads that you get. So essentially what that means is, in terms of it's more expensive, just in case people don't understand what it means, your money gets you less reach. Because you get less reach, it means that you have to spend more in order to find somebody that will click on your ad and convert to a lead, which overall just makes your advertising campaign more expensive. So for example, if you spent $100 on advertising on Instagram compared to LinkedIn, on Instagram you could get 100 leads, whereas on LinkedIn you could get 50, right? That's essentially what we're saying there. So obviously it provides high cost. And the second thing is their targeting still isn't as advanced and as effective as some of the other platforms. So LinkedIn's still a bit more of a newer up-and-comer in terms of the advertising space online. So again, for high ticket, I wouldn't recommend it. Yes, there are some good audiences on there, but again, if you've got 5k in ad spend, you want that budget to go much further. YouTube is really good, and YouTube is one that I would recommend. The only issue with YouTube is that it requires a very high level of skill set to make it work, because a lot of the videos need to be longer format, and that requires a higher level of copywriting required. And also I find that advertising on YouTube and setting that up through Google is more complex than some of the other platforms. So ads complexity is a bit harder to get working, but is a good shout. Facebook, again, is good. Facebook is one that does work as well for advertising your coaching. And again, just before I go on with this, just want to say that all of these platforms do work. I'm just giving you the one that I found to be the best and the most effective after spending over 6 figures on advertising. Now, Facebook is good. A couple of issues with Facebook are the type of demographic that's on there. So it's a very much more an aging demographic. So for some niches and for some audiences, that's an issue. It's not as inclusive compared to some other platforms. And there's a lot of trolls and just interesting characters on Facebook. So the lead qualities varies, right? So again, not complete write-off, but there's better. TikTok, if you're looking to sell coaching, I wouldn't recommend TikTok ads. TikTok ads are more geared towards e-commerce and selling products. And that's also the type of consumer that is using TikTok as well. So if you're looking for more advanced buyers who are really looking to solve their problems, TikTok isn't the place to go. And then that leaves us with Instagram, which I'm going to recommend you use as the platform of choice, right? Instagram has some of the best targeting. It has the best range of demographics on there. So you get the older generations as well as the younger generations. The targeting is fantastic. The cost of it is brilliant. So it's very easy to make profitable. And for any of my clients where we turn 5k in ad spend into 50k, almost every single time we do that on Instagram because of that. So in terms of platform, if you want to turn 5K into 50K, Instagram is your go-to. So let's carry on and look at this. Now, the next thing we want to look at here is actually your ad strategy. Now, in terms of ad strategy, there are essentially a couple of different ways that you can do this, right? So I just want to break down what's going to be best for you. So ad strategy essentially means, where are you going to send people when they click on your ad? And is that going to be a webinar? Is that going to be a video sales letter? Is that going to be to a low ticket offer? Or is that going to be to a lead magnet? So let's break this down. Webinars are long form videos, a couple of hours long, of essentially you doing some form of presentation, which is going to help you to convert the viewer of the webinar into a customer, right? In terms of these as ad strategy for coaches, I don't recommend it. It requires so much time and energy and effort. And it really makes you wear the hat of a salesman and a marketer. When most coaches, you're not those things. You don't want to worry about those things. So for that reason, I don't typically recommend webinars. Again, a lot of the time with webinars as well, people now know the purpose of webinars, and they eventually you're going to pitch them at the end. So the conversion is difficult to make happen. You've got to have great speaking skills and presentation skills. You've also then got to have great upselling skills at the end of the presentation to convert. So again, it works, it's just harder than it needs to be, so I wouldn't recommend that. Now, next we've got a video sales letter. So a video sales letter is just a video, usually between sort of 5 to 12 minutes long, which essentially breaks down for people why they should book in a call with you, long story short. Now again, these are good and they can be good, but for coaches, I don't typically recommend them as the go-to route unless you're very established and you have a very intricate understanding of your target avatar. The reason for that is because if you're still learning your messaging or you're still tweaking it and evolving it, these can get very expensive. As well as that, again, very high skill set required to make a really good video sales letter that converts and gets people to book there and then. And again, there's less touch points between somebody booking in and eventually becoming a customer compared to some other strategies, which we'll break down in a moment, which can lead to a harder sales cycle and a bit more of a colder sale, which sometimes can be difficult, again, considering that coaches aren't salesmen or marketers. So again, if we're ranking these out of these three, I'll do that at the end, but I'm going to put this at 4. I'm going to put this at 3, this at 2, and this at 1, and I'll break down the other 2 in a moment. Now, the next one here is low ticket. Now, low ticket, don't even consider it, right? The amount of time and energy you work and put into selling something at a low ticket price point to then get a customer out of that's high ticket is just not worth your time and energy, right? You can spend hours setting up a landing page, creating the perfect low ticket product, whether that be a paid webinar or a paid PDF or guide or something like that. And then the amount of skill that you need to really upsell those people to make this profitable just isn't worth your time. Going straight for the throat with high ticket is 10 times more effective. And then lastly, we have got lead magnets. And these are the types of ad strategies that I'd actually recommend most coaches run. But, big but with this, not the typical lead magnet strategy that you're probably thinking of. So I'm going to break down now exactly what type of lead magnet I mean and I would recommend. And that actually leads me to the next point, which is the lead flow. Right? So in terms of what type of lead magnet, that's what we're going to look at now. So first off, we have the typical PDF and the ebook. I'm going to do these together because they're very similar. PDFs and ebooks essentially are something that you write, which has value in, which you then provide to the customer, and essentially hoping that the customer who has that problem downloads that lead magnet. Right? Now, the issue with these is that nobody ever reads them. You will get so many people that opt in and download the thing, but such a small percentage, such a small fraction of them will actually ever read it. And those who do read it, a lot of the time they are just looking for free stuff, and they're not really going to progress and ascend into a high ticket customer. So a lot of the time I just don't recommend these because the amount of time and energy you'll spend into writing that and perfecting that, yes, you generate leads through that, yes, you get interest, but that interest the percent of that interest that actually turns into a call in your calendar or like an actual sale is such a low percentage. And yes, sales is a numbers game, it's about doing reps and it's about getting as many people in through the door as you can. But the issue with that is that the volume that you need to do is just unnecessarily larger than some of these other options, right? So I wouldn't recommend that whatsoever, and I would avoid those. Now, the next, you've got a quiz. So these are a type of lead magnet where you get people to answer some sort of quiz to go through to help them understand a little bit more about themselves. And then off the back of that, you can offer them to book a call. Again, these are types of ads which a mix. Like, you can get some really great performance and you can get some really difficult ones. It's really hard to create your quiz to make it in a way that people actually want to go through it and continue through all of your questions. And to frame it in a way where your customer actually wants to go through it in the first time. So again, this just adds complexity to the marketing and lead generation, which doesn't need to be there. So I wouldn't recommend a quiz at all. Now, the next one is a free training, right? So what you can do is, this is another style of VSL that we mentioned here, where instead of here where you would send people straight to a landing page with this video on, here you would have like a bit of a filter. So you would have your ad, then you would have like an opt-in page, then you would have the training, then you would invite them to book a call. Now, don't get me wrong, these can be good. The tricky thing that I found with these types of ads and this sort of taking the lead through this flow for them in order to book in a call, is that it really does require a really high level of copywriting and understanding and how to run these and experience to find that perfect balance between giving enough of a training where people don't feel like they've been tricked into clicking and giving their information, but also not giving too much where then it retracts them from booking in a call. So again, this is great and it really can be great. It's just about finding that balance. So again, in terms of for coaches looking for high ticket clients, this wouldn't be my initial go-to. Again, coaches are coaches. You're not salesmen, you're not marketers. This adds more complexity. This is good. It wouldn't be my go-to. So obviously I'm going to get to the next one, but I'm just going to rank these in, this is tough, in order of what I'd recommend you do. Now, one that I haven't added on here, which I should recommend and should discuss, is a cheat sheet. So a cheat sheet would be a really in detailed document around a specific problem. Now, this can sort of fit into the category of these two, and I've had more experience running with myself, or a better experience, should I say, with cheat sheets. Now, similar thing to these two, barely anyone read it, barely anyone consumed it, but the people that were downloading it, because I spoke on an advanced problem that my customer had, the people that were downloading it were more intent people and people who did book in for calls. So I found cheat sheets had a better conversion than these two, but again, still also wasn't the best. So that then leads us to the last type of lead magnet, which is one that you likely wouldn't have heard of. And this is essentially having your Instagram page as your lead magnet. And so this is the one that I recommend and push for all of my clients to do. And so essentially what you do is you transform this page to act as a lead magnet. So we run ads and we drive them to your Instagram page. That is the sole difference. Right, that is all you do differently. So instead of running ads to get them to opt into a training, to get them to opt in to download a PDF, we run ads to get them to view your Instagram page, right? And essentially what you're asking them to do is you're asking them to follow you. And that's how you generate and capture these leads. Now, in terms of why this is so effective, is because, one, it's really low friction, right? So I'm going to show you how to write the ad in a moment, but the ad is very specific and very targeted to your target avatar. So you always get the right eyeballs on it, and you can get as advanced customers as you want looking at this page, right? Then there's low friction because they don't have to give any information or anything before they opt in to see what you're giving on your page. And the way that the ad's structured is essentially saying, if you're this person with this problem, come on my page, look through my content, give me a follow, I'm going to show you how to achieve X, Y, Z, whatever their goal is. Right, so then on your page, you can optimize that to, one, show your story, show your results, show why you're different, and the rest of your page, just flood it with absolute value. You can have an endless amount of lead magnets on here, all around the different problems that your target customer has. And so the way that I get my clients to do it, the coaches I help, is with problems, micro problems. So your target customer has a big overarching problem, and what makes up that problem are loads of small problems. So for example, the coaches that I help, they all struggle with getting clients. What makes that up is they don't know how to run ads, they don't know how to market themselves, they don't know how to create content, they don't know how to generate leads, etc., etc., etc. All of these micro problems are the value that I flood all across my page. And by optimizing my page in this way, essentially what happens is when I run ads, people come on my page, they can resonate with me on a personal level, they can see I've got results and they can see why I'm different. And as well as that, they can then consume all of the content and the value completely for free before they even have to opt in. So because then they come in and you've given them so much before they've opted in, it makes them a no-brainer that they will then follow you, become a lead, and then you can message them and book them in for a call, essentially. And so this is why this is the best type of lead magnet for coaches specifically, because one, it's low friction, so your costs massively reduce, and that's why we can turn 5K into 50K with this strategy, because the costs are so low, we get so much volume, these numbers become very, very attainable, right? Number two, people buy the coach, not the coaching. So people can buy into you and see your story, your results, why you're different, and all the value that you can provide before having to give you anything, which makes them more likely to convert. And number three, like I said, it's just an easier workflow, and then you keep it all within Instagram. So if we're doing like a free training, for example, we have to take them off the Meta platform. And essentially Meta doesn't really like that because now we're taking them away. But by keeping them all in here, Meta likes that. So it gives us further reach, it gives us more push, and it's an easier way to generate leads. So in terms of lead generation, this is what you should be doing, right? So now let's look at the next part, which is the creative. So how should you actually be producing this advert? So let's have a look at this. So realistically, there's only two ways to go about this. You either do a photo or you do a video. Now, the way that I recommend doing these types of reels, or these types of ads, is actually a video. Static images can work, I'm not saying they don't work, but the reason that we do it this way, and I'm going to break down the script for you in a moment, is because when we do it like this, it doesn't feel like an ad. And this is also the effectiveness of this campaign is, okay, not only now are we doing and generating leads in a way which is super, super low friction for us, but we're also creating a video which just feels like a normal piece of content. Now, don't forget that as consumers, we are trained and we have trained our brains to avoid and to block out advertising, okay? Because we don't want to be advertised to, no one wants to be sold to. So by creating an ad in this way, which doesn't feel like a piece of an advert, that's the best way to do it. Now, let me break down the script and then I'll break down why it doesn't feel like a piece of content, why it doesn't feel like an ad. Now, in terms of the script, super, super simple. So your first line, your hook, you're calling out your client avatar. So essentially you're saying if you're X person with Y problem looking for Z transformation, this is for you. Then you're going to list 3 pain points that your target customer has, the biggest things that they are struggling with. Then you are going to list 1 thing that they've tried before, right? Then you're going to have your first CTA, which is to follow and go through the page. Then you're going to have 2 testimonials, and then you're going to have your CTA again. Now, the reason we do it this way is because it speaks so clearly to the client avatar, right? So first of all, there's no misunderstanding or room for misunderstanding from the person listening to it on who exactly you're trying to speak to, which gives it a great big tick, first of all, because in the first 3 seconds of any ad or any piece of content, you need to capture exactly who you're looking for. So we capture them in that way. Then by listing their 3 biggest pain points, we then start to attract people who have the exact problems that we're looking for. So we bring more advanced buyers that are problem aware and are looking for help. By listing something they've tried before, that helps them to see that what we have to offer is different. We have a different take and a different angle on it, which sparks curiosity. Then we give them our first call to action. If they're not ready to take action, we give them 2 testimonials or results, before and after case studies, which then, when we give the second call to action, will get them to get going, essentially. Now, in terms of how we record this, it's so simple. You literally just pick up your phone, you have a teleprompter, and you read out this script. It doesn't need to be fancy production, doesn't need to be in some crazy podcast studio. A lot of my clients just do it in their living rooms with their family photos in the background. But because it feels so soft and so casual, but what you're saying is so direct and so relevant, people engage with that and they resonate with it, and that's why it converts. So that's essentially how you want to create the ad. And then the last thing really to look at in terms of this process, which is super simple to help you to turn 5K in ad spend into 50K in client revenue, is how to target it. And also how to launch. Now, the first thing for you to understand, because of how advanced the Meta algorithm now is, and because we are doing our ad in this way where we're speaking so clearly and saying out loud exactly who we want, the pain points that they've got, the algorithm will actually do a lot of the targeting for us on its own. And that's why we set it up this way, because your page is so optimized for that client avatar. The ad that you're putting out is so specific to that avatar, it will just make it impossible essentially for them not to convert and to resonate with that, right? So a lot of the targeting is done by the algorithm, simply by what we're saying. But in terms of from a targeting point of view, you want to always turn off, especially on Instagram, always turn off Advantage Plus, right? Advantage Plus, turn that off. What that does is it gives Instagram the scope, if you have it on, to target people outside of what you've set as your targeting, which essentially makes your targeting irrelevant and gives you a random low quality lead. So always have this off. Right? You want to set your location of only where you work and want clients in. Your age range, let's say your typical age range is, for example, 25 to 40. Add a couple of years on either side of that, unless it's very niche specific and it's impossible, but have a bit of broader age, just to give the platform a little bit of leeway and some things to work with. Because again, like I said, a lot of the targeting will be done through the AI and through the algorithm and through the messaging that we've put out there. Then in terms of interests, right? You want to pick 3 to 5 interests on the platform which are relevant to your target customer. So for example, if I'm looking for coaches, I'll put 3 really broad interests just to give the algorithm a little bit of a push in direction. For example, for myself, I'd put like business, sales, marketing, as broad as that, right? So if you're a career coach, it would be like career development, self-improvement, as broad as that, right? Don't overthink that. And then from a targeting point of view, there's not much else really that you need to do, okay? Like that is essentially it. Now in terms of how to launch this, I have found for these types of ads, there's 2 ways to launch it on Instagram. You can either do it through the Meta Ads Manager, or you can do a boosted post. Now I've tested both with pretty much all of my clients. I've worked with over 50 coaches at this point, generated them over $1 million in revenue. Now although the Ads Manager gives us more ability and more insight into testing, Boost Post works 10 times better. Now you might not want to hear this. I have no idea why, and I can't explain to you why it works so much better. But boosting these types of ads, so posting them on your page, making it look like a piece of content, and then boosting it from that, makes it performs 1,000,000 times better. Now, always launch it from your laptop on your browser, because that helps you to avoid the Apple service charge. If you do it on your phone, they'll take 30% of your ad spend. But doing a boost post always works 10 times better. And when you do the boost post and you set it up, the objective is visit Instagram profile, you set your location, you do a bit of a broader age range demographic, you do 3 to 5 interests that are pretty broad, you turn Advantage Plus off, and you set your budget, and literally that is all you need. And if you do it like this, you follow the steps that I've just mentioned, that is how you can turn 5k into 50k in client revenue. And I'm not just speaking in hot air here. The reason that I'm giving these numbers, because these are numbers that my clients have done on repeat, different niches, using this exact process. So I hope you found that useful. And if you've got any questions at all about how to really get this up and running, a couple of options for you. Number 1, my Instagram's below. Drop me a message. More than happy to help and give you some more resources. Number 2, you'll see my calendar below also. So if you want to book in a chat with me and get me to show you essentially how this would work, that is also there. But this is at a top level, essentially, what you need to be doing to turn 5k in ad spend into 50k in client revenue. And it doesn't get much simpler than that, really. Using Instagram to send them to your Instagram page for an advert, then you're getting them to message you and then booking a call. And that is the flow at a top level. So like I said, any questions, feel free to reach out. And that is how you turn 5k in ad spend into 50k in client revenue.